When you understand your industry, the needs that most providers do not meet, and the frustrations of the clients who want better service, you are in a position to use your creative advantage to reinvent the industry and to transform the client experience and results. Today's guest has created a profitable business that serves clients at the highest levels because he saw the landscape and chose to operate in a different way. Today, he shares his secret sauce for building a company that grew 30% during the pandemic and in the last year saw a 40% increase in profitability. Hi, I'm Dr. Karen Wilson Starks, your host for The Voice of Leadership and Dr. Karen Speaks Leadership, and I invite you to listen to today's show for profitable ideas that you can apply to your own business. So let me tell you about my guest. Rick Gang is the CEO and co founder of Holistic HomeCare Associates based in Riverdale, New York. In 2014, Rick established Holistic Home Care to ensure that every client receives compassionate, high quality service. Holistic simplifies the caregiver hiring process, prioritizes family control, and enhances overall quality. Fueled by the chaos of trying to hunt down top notch caregivers in the jungle of traditional home care agencies, Holistic reinvented home care to make hiring a breeze, the family the boss, and choice, control, and quality interwoven into every fiber of the process. As a seasoned home care expert with nearly 4 decades of experience in home care management and a BA degree in sociology and political science as a minor, Rick has a knack for quickly and accurately understanding clients' needs. He and his holistic dream team offer the clients top notch employer support services, enlightenment on all things home care, and empowerment to make informed choices. Rick ensures that he and his team meet every client with white glove service, deep understanding of the home care landscape, kindness, and a smile. And when he is not focusing on home care, he also spent time as a deputy sheriff for 28 years, actively engaged in the community, and he also parents his 3 children, River 21, Sam 14, and Ryan 17. So, Rick, welcome to the Voice of Leadership and to Dr. Karen Speaks Leadership.
Thank you, Dr. Karen. Pleasure to be here with you.
It's a delight to be here with you. And I know we have so much that we can talk about today. And so we're just going to launch right in if that's okay with you.
Love it.
All right. My first question, because some people in the audience may not know about home care, first give us a little bit of information about that. What is home care? Who needs those services? And is home care the same as home health care?
Excellent question. So, home care is services that are brought into the home, typically paraprofessionals, all the way up to clinicians themselves. Home care is typically on a longer term, whereas home health is typically people like physical therapy, occupational therapy coming in for short term post incident or fall or whatever it is that's needing their short term services. And we're seeing more and more of a shift to in home care of the medical delivery. So, home health is also a developing field, but home health care is more of the long term, some of the paraprofessional companion. Then you have home health aides and certified nurses aides who are helping with activities of daily living, bathing, dressing, cooking, laundry, all of those activities. So that's the main differences. And the services are usually received by anyone who needs any assistance with remaining at home or independent. So it can be someone with a long-term chronic illness, it can be a younger person, and it can also be typically the seniors who are living much longer and wanting to remain at home. So
Okay, great. Let me make sure I have this straight. Did you say that home care is typically the more long term solution and home health the shorter short-term solution,
The home
and
health is also more the medical,
yes, the home health.
the home health, right?
And you can have more paraprofessionals in home care.
Home care, correct.
Okay, great. I just thank you. I just wanted to review that because I was thinking maybe I'd heard that incorrectly.
And it is a place where there's a lot of gray crossover. So you can have nurses in a home care agency, and you can have home care services provided through RN services. And then in home health, it would be more of an episodic situation rather than an ongoing relationship.
Okay, great. So I think we have the landscape. So tell us a little bit then about who you see as your clients in the business and how you add value to those clients.
Sure. Here in our registry model of home care, we really have two clients. We have the families that come to us for care, and we also have the caregivers coming to us looking for work. So we really act as matchmakers in the home care space, and it's a different model than the traditional licensed agency. That's really who's coming to us are our families who are looking to hire caregivers, and then also the like I said, the caregivers looking for work. And it's really our duty to vet the caregivers and then also match them with the clients as best fits all of the personalities, the skills, the schedules, and then all of the nuances, whether they can play chess, speak French, and aren't allergic to the cat.
That's great. I love the way you frame it as a matchmaking service of sorts. And I know, Rick, that you also have a perspective that says you want to do a form of social justice, if you will, for the caregivers. So talk about that a little bit and how you benefit the caregivers as a client as well.
It's a win-win-win, really. And I think that's one of those places where if you can identify a win-win-win and put yourself in that equation, it's a home run. It's a guaranteed success. And the way that we've done that is by having the caregivers work directly for the families. So the overhead of my office, I have an internal office of under 10 people, but yet I'm able to work with over 500 caregivers. If I were a typical agency, my overhead would just be cost prohibitive for me to pay the end user, the caregiver, properly. Just the margins just keep getting tighter and tighter. So in our model, the caregivers are able to earn significantly more than their counterpart at the traditional agency. Typical agencies in my region are anywhere from $19 an hour to $22 an hour, and we don't have anyone, I don't think, below 25 an hour. Most of our cases are 30 an hour and up. In that regard, the caregiver is able to secure a higher paying wage. They have the steady long-term relationship with the employer. They don't have that turnover that they have at the agency. And so that really puts us in a position to lift up caregivers and get them into better paying positions and reward them for their hard work. And then also the family wins because they're choosing who they want to hire. And when they're employing the aide directly, they can control those tasks, like I said before. And if you have a family member who has an illness, long-term chronic illness such as Parkinson's, you may have peg tube feeding or something, an agency aide isn't going to be allowed to handle that. They would require an LPN to come in. When the family employs directly, it's just as if another family member is there to do that task. It's another win for the family. And we're able to put ourselves in that equation and make sure all of the employment is done properly, and there's workers' comp and disability, unemployment insurance, all of the payroll taxes are done properly. It's a win-win-win. Everyone is happy. So that's really sort of the secret sauce that we've created here.
Well, that's actually a beautiful story because if you think about the people who usually do home care and are often not paid a living wage, this gives them an opportunity to really provide for their own families and have a career that has a long-term trajectory to it. And the families, they get to select the people who they want to have, not just have someone from the agency show up and lose control over that. And yet all the back office stuff that most family members would know how to do, your organization makes sure that that gets taken care of, the insurance, the benefits, and so on. Which brings me to another question because you're operating in New York. This is a field that's regulated. New York can be a tough place in which to work. So, say a little bit about how you've managed to make it work in New York. And you know what they say, if you can do it in New York, you can do it anywhere. So,
That's exactly right. And that was one of the reasons I didn't want to do this business without a business partner, honestly, because of the licensing requirements. I said, I need a business partner for this. And the universe was very good at that point and introduced me to Ann Sansevero, who's my co-founder with me.
what we're talking about is this whole notion of how you're surviving in New York with all the regulatory demands and just the difficulty of working in New York. And part of the answer you say is your co-founder with you. And what else is making it work for you?
So also just leaning into all of the regulations, figuring out how to make the New York City's sticky and overbearing laws fit into best practices so that we can check off the city's boxes to work, under our license that we need to oblige by, but also facilitate everything for the family. So we also develop software to do the registry model and to manage all of the moving parts. And as we're speaking with other registries nationwide, it's where the rules are just very different, much more friendly to do business. And it's like, well, we built it in New York, and the only place that's more challenging probably is California. So second to California, if you can do it here, you can really, I think, do it anywhere, because from there it'll be downhill. So I didn't mind jumping through all the hoops. It's just trying to figure out how do you check those boxes and yet still get your mission accomplished. I know other people that have figured out sort of other creative ways, whether they call themselves an online marketplace or whatnot, but I choose to do things the proper way and go through and just have everything buttoned up.
The proper channels in an innovative way. And you mentioned technology. So, share with us a little bit more about how you use technology to really do the matchmaking, to do the back office part, and how that's innovative in your industry.
On so many fronts, and I'm not a tech person, even just the ability for us to go fully remote during the pandemic. Pre-pandemic, I would have told you it would be impossible for me to have any internal staff outside of the New York area. And now I know that that's completely erroneous. Our own internal software, it was really just the need no one else was supplying the software to match the clients and caregivers. And so we wanted to be sort of the eHarmony of clients and caregivers for the registry and home care space. So that's where we started, and we built that. And then the companies that we were using for payroll and scheduling and communications were gobbled up by venture capital. And one company was closed and condensed into the other, and customer service went downhill, and saw the writing on the wall and just decided to lean into the opportunity and build those modules that we needed into our existing software. And it's really just about solving problems, identifying a need, seeing if there's a solution out there. And if not, then I went kind of kicking and screaming into the software development. But it's really taking off now, and it's an interesting endeavor. I'm running my registry 2 years now on it completely. And even if it didn't sell, I just know the money that I'm saving by using it myself really pays for it.
But this is really phenomenal because this is not your area of expertise. And yet you jumped in at the deep end of the pool, I'm sure with help and partners and so on to make it happen because you saw the need and then you created the solution for it. And I think that's really part of the secret sauce in your business is that you do see the needs and then you figure out how can we solve for this? How can we create a solution that is that triple win again? That's really what you're talking about. Part of your technology, as I recall, it even allows you to be unique in how you do your screening and vetting and matchmaking. So, say a little bit more about how the technology helps you to do some things that maybe others aren't able to do to get such great matches.
Yes. So despite even like some of the regulations in Florida, they don't want you matching on personalities. But I mean, we really have to be realistic. I mean, if this person is in your home doing personal care and living with you, you really need to make sure that personalities match. This isn't someone coming to wash your windows. This is someone who's coming to really personally be involved in one's life. So making sure that match, we've come up with the most unusual matches. It's always worth it. It's always worth investing the time to make that match, even if it's not the easiest to make. These are very personal relationships that we're facilitating, and it's software doesn't eliminate anyone. We have over 500 caregivers in our roster and over 75 RNs. It constantly just reshuffles them. So it just re-ranks them according to the match, because we never wanted to take the human element out of it. We do love technology. We're leaning into AI, and so far so good, but we never wanted to take the human out of it, because the schedulers or whoever it is always going to know some detail that the software doesn't know. So it's important to work smart, not hard, but still have the human touch in it.
So let me ask this. What was it that prompted you to even start holistic home care? And what did you see maybe that was broken in the industry at the time?
I had been doing caregiver placements through my mother's care management practice. My mother's now a retired nurse. She was one of the founding members of the Aging Life Care Association. The first chapter was here in New York in 1985. A group of women, mostly social workers. My mother was one of the few nurses, got together and formed this organization. And I kind of grew up managing my mother's private practice as a nursing-based care management practice. And during those years, we would always screen caregivers for our clients to privately hire, because we saw that was really the best way for them to. We had a lot of clients that were running almost medical homes, chronic care conditions, suctioning, trach. So having highly skilled caregivers who are able to do those things was always important. And after 20 years, I had amassed about 200 caregivers that I had just constantly rolling through and getting placed on cases. And we, would do their background check, and then we would open an ADP payroll account. And after my mother retired, I continued to run the practice a few years, and was then looking to hand off some of the Manhattan cases to Ann Sensavero, who said, "Well, Rick, what are you going to do after you wind down the practice?" And I said, "I don't really know, Ann. But I'm ready for a break out of care management and getting the 3 a.m. calls that Mrs. Smith is going to the emergency room. And, it's time to get the power of attorney on the phone." And my life had done that for 20 years, and I was ready for a little bit of a change. And Ann knew that I had these 200 caregivers, and she said, "Why don't we open a registry together?" And I said, "Well, that I'll do," because I was always ready to do it. I just needed a partner. So I said, "Are you willing to do that?" She said, "Absolutely, because I can't get good caregivers for my clients. So this is an opportunity for my clients, my business, and for her as well." So that's when we decided to join forces and officially kick off. So.
Well, that's another opportunity as a win-win, so to speak, that's in more than one direction. The two of you coming together, having been out there separately, knowing of each other and interfacing, and now partnering together. So let's talk about that a little bit. I know that business partners, it's not always perfect. You got to figure out, like in marriage, husband and wife, how you're going to make this thing work. So talk a little bit about that, and a little bit about Ann's role also with ALCA, the professional organization that your mother was very involved in,
Yes.
and how she's connected with that as well, and how that relates to what you do day to day.
I see an EIN, employer identification number, for any business almost like a social security number for a child. It really is a marriage. We are stewards of this young life that we need to cultivate and help mature. So Ann and I are very different personalities. Anyone who meets us, I think, realizes that. But it's also one of our strengths, is that we are different. And it was not always easy in communication and getting to figure out each other's style. But I think it's a good balance in having different personalities. I think it makes business itself stronger. And Ann's role, she has a thriving care management practice in Manhattan called Health Sense, where she has several nurses and a social worker under her. And so she will refer clients as appropriate. If a client has a policy that won't reimburse for this model of home care, she refers to agency models, or she'll refer to multiple. That's one of the things about ALCA, Aging Life Care Association, is really the ethics and the standards of everything are really very impressive. I haven't seen another professional organization that has such dedication to professional ethics, which is refreshing, especially nowadays.
Well, that's true. It's good to have those ethics in place. And the two of you have figured out how to divide the responsibility, so to speak. So, what are some examples of what Anne does versus what you do and how it all comes together?
So I'm more involved in the day-to-day operations, and I guess less and less over the last year as we promoted our manager to our director of operations, and I was able to step really out of the day-to-day operations and more into the running the business and on whatever the saying is, spending time developing the business instead of running the business. That and the software takes up most of my time. Anne is very busy with her care management practice and referring clients who may need services, and her role with ALCA and her other various endeavors.
So, one way of thinking about it, I see Anne is kind of like she's down on the street level, so to speak, seeing what's going on, who might need things, having the connections and the relationships with people in the industry to know where the referrals can come from and so on. And then you've got your operations person in the middle doing the day to day of running the business. And you're kind of in more of a strategic role, oversight overall, looking at kind of what the business needs in an overarching sense, is what I'm hearing and how you describe that.
Yes, and really just building those relationships. I did several conferences last year, 2 to 3 networking events a week. I don't know what hat I'm ever wearing, whether I'm wearing my holistic home care hat or the software hat or just the connector hat. And either one always turns out to be fruitful in one capacity or another. And they're always just good when they're mixing.
It's good to have a diversity of skills and abilities that you can bring to the process.
Yeah, and even if I don't, I mean, even if the worst thing I do is connect someone, that's still a wonderful thing.
That's a
So
skill, by the way, connecting people. I
yes,
consider that
yes.
a skill. So when you're building this business, and you mentioned having 10 people and so on and so forth, it can be challenging sometimes to get the right people on the team. We talked about you and your co-founder and the two of you figuring out the best optics and ways to work together. What about getting your team together? What have you faced? What have you had to do in order to get the right people?
It's been a learning process, and it's definitely changed over the 10 years as well. We've been very blessed with really good internal team, and I've been a part of the hiring of each and every one, and I do feel that I am a good read on people. I did just have an unfortunate experience of being ghosted by a young person who recently started and then disappeared, but that's kind of the trend now, and I know I'm not alone in that. But finding the right people, complimenting them, and paying accolades when they do a good job, compensating them appropriately, and having good communication, I think, is really critical. My personal assistant was also our first employee. She's with us 8 years. She's 78, and she works as many hours as I do. I can't sing her accolades enough, but I think finding the right people who can grow with you and who believe in the mission and vision and internalize it, because then it's no longer employer employee. It's kind of a bigger mission.
Like a partnership of sorts, and that values, mission, fit, that's really important to creating the right culture. And of course, we all run into people who we think fit but really don't. So, what experience have you had with maybe having to make some shifts? Maybe somebody wasn't the right fit.
Oh, yes, definitely. And even as the company grew, there's sometimes resistance to growth. Why, we've been doing it this way all this long, and presenting the potential negatives from their perspective, of course. And if there's ultimately just resistance, and that's what we had in this one case, it seems like our mission and vision have sort of separated, and it was just a very easy conversation. And he said, really, in all honesty, I want to go back to producing shows, his former career. So, it's fine. Everyone is in their time and place as it's right and feels right. And sometimes it's okay to also just separate. So I think as long as people are in good communication about it, so that it's not that quiet quitting perspective, but just a dialogue, what are your current interests?
Exactly. And it doesn't mean that the people are bad people. They may have served their season in the business, let's say. Maybe there's something else that they're more passionate about at this time. Perhaps there is a better place for them to go. The business has changed, all of these things. And so we just change chairs and seats when that happens and remain, I would say, respectful of and willing to see the good in the other person, even if they've moved on to something else.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really critical. So I mentioned earlier, Rick, that your company grew during the pandemic when a lot of people, of course, were freaked out by the pandemic. Talk about that a little bit. What were some of the factors that enabled growth at such a difficult time?
Well, it was really a challenging time. Nothing prepared any of us for what was coming. I was just looking through my old cell phone pictures and saw a picture March 25th, 2020, where I had my desk and my chair on the roof of my car going home from my final day here in the office, figuring out how to navigate the changing climate of, at one point it was caregivers needed IDs when there was a curfew. All of these curveballs. How do we go remote? How does team function? How do we get people to cases? Most of the cases were transitioning to live in. We didn't want people traveling. The lower amount of people in and out of a household was ideal. Pivoted. We did a lot of live in. We worked with financial coach and who helped us really see in live time that we needed to also adjust the rates for the live in because that was a smaller segment of our business and the margins were lower and we were losing the hourly, which was the better service line. So we just did a price change live real time without having to look back at the quarter going, oh, what happened? Why did our profits drop? So having gurus in their sectors, being able to consult has also been a part of the success. Yeah, and I think really the pandemic where just people did not want to be in a facility. So home care was the natural choice. And people were not able to travel or be with their loved ones or not necessarily able to relocate. So I think that was just the growth in home care in general. So we've had growth after year. The pandemic certainly accelerated that, but we haven't let off either. So, and I think as people call this the silver tsunami that's coming, boomers that are, I think by 2030, population that's going to be over 65 is tremendous. And it's important for those people that are doing quality care or services in general for this population, just be tried and true and professional. And yeah, because there's a lot of noise, I think, in the industry as there's all the Wall Street reports show the demographics moving into this area, and there's a lot of venture capital and other motives moving into this sector. So it's important to just identify those that are the true practitioners.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to get back to that in a second, but I want to ask you first about the other kinds of flexibility and agility you had to have during the pandemic. And what are some of the things you've carried over into the post-pandemic world that you mentioned earlier about even working remotely and how you didn't even think that would be possible? Share a little bit about what you've learned about that, what you're doing now that maybe you wouldn't have done before, and it's working.
Just the fact that I didn't think I could hire people outside of New York City. I thought if they couldn't get to my office daily, and just with Google Teams and Meets, Google Meeting, we were able to really our team meets daily, the Google Chat going daily, constantly having video meetings, and then we do host times for our team to get together as well, so that we do have in-person time and it's not completely lost. There is some balance that does need to exist. Also, just in like we use Monday.com as a custom CRM that we've built. A lot of tools that, again, having good consultants available to help us devise this on the fly, and it's been a game changer.
And I think if I remember correctly, you even have a tree office. Treehouse
I do.
office. Treehouse office,
During
I should call it.
during COVID, I worked the first 12 months in my garage, and then I spent 16 months in a 30-foot camper trailer that I converted the front bedroom into an office. And then the town told me that they were going to fine me if I didn't remove it. So I started building a treehouse office that is now, it's 14 by 14. It's got insulation, air conditioning, heat, and has a full bathroom, shower. So it's a little bit more than a typical. It's like a little house up in a tree.
That's what I would call an executive treehouse office.
There it is.
But the point is, you made it work. And that's really what I'm highlighting, to create an office of that type so you could work remotely and get everything done. That's pretty creative and innovative as well. And so I just wanted to throw that in because I thought that was pretty cool.
And it's a neat story because it was really making lemonade out of lemons. I had bought all the wood for the treehouse for our first COVID Thanksgiving. It was going to be my outside little gazebo, and my neighbor called the town, the same one who called on the camper, and they put a stop work order. So I had all this lumber, and this was early in COVID, so before lumber went very expensive. And so I took all the wood to where I have some property, and I built a treehouse office. And at that point, lumber was through the roof, and I couldn't afford probably all the lumber that I had already purchased at that point. So yeah, just trying to lean into positivity and making lemonade out of lemons sometimes. And yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great success strategy, actually. So, one of the other things I wanted to ask you about is that you mentioned a number of times that you had some consultants, you had some advisors who came in to help you. And we all know that no one does this work alone, and especially because some of the consultants and advisors had areas of expertise that were different from yours. And I know that you worked with a good colleague of mine, Paul Menardis, who was your business and financial coach. So tell us about that. What did Paul do, and how did he help you achieve all of these stellar results?
I think one of the great things about our current day and age is we can tap people to be like a virtual CFO, right? And you don't need a CFO for 40 hours a week necessarily. Maybe 15 hours a week makes sense. That's really where Paul has come in. I call him our virtual CFO, and yeah, well, he's our advisor, our business strategy advisor. And he's been, like I said, that was during the pandemic. That was Paul who said, if all your business is going live in right now, we need to adjust rates. He's helped us with revenue modeling. He's helped us identify attributes of the business that I didn't think were possible. The cost of goods sold. We know our real margins now on each service line. I had a friend of mine who was involved with Five Guys Burgers, and I used to see him as a manager on his laptop, and you could see, all right, 500 large fries have been sold by 11 o'clock, and 1,800 Pepsis. Whatever. I was like, wow, you can really, like, in live time, and I feel like I've almost now got that live time statistics on my business. It's just amazing. To have that intricate knowledge and the pulse on the real true bottom line and all the moving parts of the business. And Paul's been instrumental in setting all of that up. We still meet with him continuously and look at all of our strengths, our weaknesses, opportunities. We go over our SWOT, all of the critical success factors.
And it sounds like, and one of the benefits that you've derived from having a consultant like that, someone who's an advisor, is that they help you to think about things you wouldn't think of on your own, so that there are greater possibilities for the business, greater ways to increase revenues that you wouldn't have thought of, and maybe too
That's right.
late. And so,
That's
and where it would have really cost you a lot. So there's also the part of speed of getting the information that you wouldn't have, and then also making it streamlined so that you can really manage and run the business in real time, see things coming before they actually hit, and avert disasters at the same time.
We don't know what we don't know. We're experts in what we are experts in, and having the ability to tap experts. And one of Paul's colleagues, Wide Awake Business, is Carrie Berghoff. She's been helping us with sales coaching, and it's really, I can't even put words to the impact that it's had. I've been working with her directly now, and it actually, she's been really the one who's been helping me sort of get out and push into all of that. And I'm not a salesperson. I can educate and speak to this all day, but I don't have the questions loaded in my mind. I don't have the necessarily all of the marketing stuff figured out, but she's got it, and she's just like Paul, willing to teach it and enjoys seeing people live it and do it.
Huge difference for you having those advisors, consultants around you and who care about you and the business and want to see you be successful. And if you could just even imagine or guess, where do you think you would be without them?
We would not be here.
Those partnerships have really made a difference to you being where you are now and enjoying the success that you're enjoying.
Yes. Yep.
So, what would you say? A lot of people are reluctant to consult an advisor, a coach, or a consultant along the way. What would you say to those business leaders out there, maybe to encourage them, the ones who haven't experienced the value of real outside counsel?
I make introductions for Paul and Carrie and other people on their team all the time, almost see it as my duty to let other people know that they don't have to do it all. There's a home care agency owner in Manhattan that I'm good friends with. He does a great job. He has a great business, but he won't let anyone in his office except for him speak with new clients. And I get it. I understand the quality control need. But one of the things that I had to embrace was you just need to expect 80% of what you would do in your delegation, and that's enough. I've been fortunate to have it, and I know his team can do it, and I want to role model for him and even help him keep accountable because I've had the help. So I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, hey, this is possible. You can step out, and I think one of my greatest self accomplishments is that I retrospectively looking now, I didn't even realize this, or it wasn't my intention, but God forbid tomorrow if I get hit by a bus, the company is still up and running because I've stepped out of the day to day. Not everyone needs to speak to Rick. That's really something that I'm just kind of realizing in the last year, that it's neat.
That's really an important outcome, being able to have the business have longevity even beyond you. You're really facilitating succession, you're facilitating the legacy and that good work continuing for the clients, both sets of clients that you're talking about who benefit from your services. And so that's an important outcome also, in addition to everything else that we've been talking about. So I hope that those who are listening out there will realize you can go farther, you can go faster, you can go to better places sometimes when you get some others with expertise to come in, partner with you, work with you, help you see what you don't see by yourself. So I think that's an important point, and I'm really glad that you mentioned those people from Wide Awake Business who've made a difference in your experience. You said earlier, you were talking about the kinds of people that are coming into the home care industry now because they can see that this can be a profitable business. However, they may not have the same values in place. They may be more wired towards, let's say, shareholder value and a venture capital kind of situation or whatever. Talk a little bit about who these other players are. I don't mean by name, but the kinds of players that are in the marketplace and how you are different from what they do.
There's a lot of big players. There's national franchises and chains. We are more of a mom and pop shop, a boutique concierge type of service. There are excellent franchises. There are excellent models. That gentleman I was just mentioning in Manhattan, he has a great outfit, and he came from Wall Street. He retired out of Wall Street and wanted to start a business. People come from it from all different backgrounds. There are several people that it was a family situation, whether nurse or whatever. It's an interesting mix of who comes to the industry.
And it sounds like there's more than one way to do a great job coming to the industry. So not everyone who does it differently is necessarily doing it poorly.
Correct. Just to tell you, we get phone calls that people say, "Oh, we're just happy you answered your phones." That's how my barometer is kind of showing me of the volume of places that are opening, quality, that they're just not even answering their phones. So to identify who the quality people are. Make sure you can get an owner or a manager on the phone, really understand their mission and vision. Did they just buy a franchise yesterday, or have they been in this industry for a long time? I think those things will be very evident once you get someone on the phone who's willing to have a conversation. And if not, that's probably evident of what quality you can expect. I think we all can agree when you can get the owner of the business on the phone, you're going to have a very different experience than if you have a regional manager or something else. So, yeah, I think just having local boots on the ground that you can check references and make sure that their passion and empathy is matching your values. And
Absolutely. So your families, the ones who work with you and the caregivers, what would you say is the reason that they prefer to work with your company? And what do you do to educate your clients? Because we all know that educating our clients is important. So, how do you handle educating them? Why do they prefer your organization versus some of the others?
it's really the choice and control that they have in choosing who the caregiver is and what those tasks are, and understanding that we then do the full service to make sure that all the administrative burden is eased. A lot of places you hear of just a caregiver shortage where people just don't have caregivers, and that's not one of the items that affects us. We have a waiting list of caregivers to onboard and register with us because they know they're coming to larger wages, better paying jobs in positions that will be typically much longer than a typical agency relationship. So I think all of those components, especially also if there are tasks, chronic care tasks that a licensed agency aide would not be allowed to do, or they want someone as a high level companion, who can speak French. We had a former president of the World Bank as a client, and we were able to match them with someone who had their finance degree and really create a meaningful. This guy was very type A and really didn't want to speak to anyone unless there was some common knowledge on these advanced notions. So, yeah, those are the reasons that people come and work with us, is to have that personalized, thoughtful match and supported relationship.
And I think that's one of the benefits and beauties of a boutique firm is that you're able to be nimble like that and to customize and personalize the service. It's not just one size fits all. And some people really don't want that. They want something that's customized to their loved one and their
Right.
situation. And so that's certainly a good reason to come to your organization. So, Rick, how can people reach you? How can they reach you if they want to access the services? Maybe they're in New York, or how could they reach you if they would like to have you speak anywhere, perhaps on best practices in home care?
Absolutely. The phone number for the office is 646-240-4888. My email is rick@holistichomecareassociates.com. We also have our Facebook page, and happy to do any speaking engagements. Happy to always speak to best practices on employing caregivers, or anything to do with home care, and happy to always connect people if our registry isn't the right option. It's really then my duty to make sure that I connect people with the right option. As long as the client is served, then we've done our our job.
That's phenomenal. So I know that people know if they call you, they will get a good connection if you can't help them. And I've already seen that part of how you operate. You're an excellent connector, so I can speak about that for
Thank
sure.
you.
So, Rick, what additional words of wisdom would you like to leave, for my audience of corporate executive business leaders? Most of them are not in home care. They may be in completely different industries, and yet everything that you and I have been talking about really does apply to every kind of business out there. So, what else would you like to share with them?
Quote, Blue Oceans. I don't remember the author. Collaboration happens at the top and competition happens at the bottom. And I think that's my word of wisdom.
Well, what I love is that you talk basically everything you've built has been built through high level collaborations and collaborations at every level. And that's an important concept for people to realize and to remember. And I don't even like using the term competitive advantage because what I really believe that people have is creative advantage because you're going to do something, Rick, because of who you are. Your partner, Ann, is going to do something because of who she is. So that when you create your business, it has its unique pieces based on your gifts, talents, and skills. And no one else is going to be able to do it quite like you because you are your own unique selves that you bring to the business. I call that creative advantage. You don't really need to compete with anyone, so to speak. Just show
That's right.
up with all of your glory and gifts.
Half a life really is just showing up.
Hmm.
I mean,
Like you
you,
said,
you get
answering the phone.
50% credit just for showing up.
Yes, it makes a huge difference. So I want to thank you so much for our time today and for all of the wonderful nuggets of wisdom that you have shared with my community. Thank you for being here.
I thank you, Dr. Karen.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're going to close out our segment today with a few Bible verses that I think are really relevant to what Rick and I have been talking about. So, first, I'll start with the first covenant, which is in Proverbs, the 21st chapter, verse 21. And it says, "He who follows righteousness and mercy finds life, righteousness, and honor." And I'll say that again. He who follows righteousness and mercy finds life, righteousness, and honor. And then the second reading is from Philippians, the second chapter, verses 3 and 4 out of the New Covenant, and it reads as follows: "Let nothing be done through selfish ambition and conceit, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than himself. Let each of you look out, not only for his own interests, but also for the interests of others." And I think what we've heard here today is a picture that Rick has painted of what it's like to look out for the interests of multiple stakeholders, the win-win-win, looking out for the caregivers, looking out for the families, looking out for the business and those who work in the business. With Rick, that's certainly a part of it. It's not like you don't count yourself in, you do yourself and others. And that's an important piece of it. And as a result, this business is alive. It's a living organism and it has honor. You've got the picture, you've seen it played out here. Rick has described it in an excellent way. And I hope that you too, out there who are listening today, will build a business that has mercy baked into it, righteousness and honor, and where you're paying attention to the interests of others as well as yourself. Have a great day. We'll see you next time. Hi, this is Dr. Karen, and I'm here today with Jos Snoop, who is the CEO and president of the Bible League. And the Bible League is a ministry that provides Bibles and instructional materials in the Word of God, as well as trains teachers in their local language and culture to share the Word of God and to disciple people. So today, Yost, tell us a little bit about the impact of the Bible League. What's going on out there?
Last year, I met this lady. Her name was Nimia. Nimia was born in 49. She became a Christian in 2002. And last year, we were able to invite her in one of our trainings. At the end of that meeting, she stood up and shared her testimony. She said, "This is the first time I received a Bible for my own, and I'm equipped to share the Word of God with others." I thought by myself at that point, that's why we are a Bible League. That's why God called us to be in ministry, to serve people like that and to equip them with the right materials and with the Word of God.
Oh, thank you so much, Yos, for sharing that story. And what I want to let everyone know is you can be a part of this movement as well. You can go to BibleLeague.org to find out more about the ministry and also to donate to the ministry. There are lots more stories like the one that Yos just shared today about lives that are changed and impacted for God through Jesus Christ. Today, I'm here with Terrence Chapman, the president and CEO of nonprofit organization Victorious Family. They are committed to family discipleship and transformation. Thank you for being here, Terrence. Tell us about your big goal, what it is that you're going for at Victorious Family.
Well, by 2030, we see reaching 9.2 million families here in the U.S.
That is wonderful. And you're reaching these families because you really want to see children grow up and truly continue their faith in Christ. So tell us about one of your resources, Do Your Children Believe, the book you've written?
Well, Ephesians 6:4 says, fathers, don't exasperate your children, but to bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. So we're just being faithful to that calling. In order to do that, we train coaches and we provide workshops and content to train parents on how to disciple their children.
That is phenomenal. So how can people find out more about the ministry and the other tools and resources you have available, and also how they can donate to support the ministry?
Well, one of those tools is Do Your Children Believe, a book that we've published by Thomas Nelson, and you can find that at victoriousfamily.org.
Fantastic. All right, so there you have it. You want your family to be victorious? Go to victoriousfamily.org. You've been listening to The Voice of Leadership with me, Dr. Karen Wilson Starks. And I want to give a special thanks to jazz saxophonist Ron McMillan for granting us permission to use his gifted music on our show. Thanks for listening, and remember to go to my website, transleadership.com, for more strategies, insights, and leadership resources.